Welcome, everyone. So good to see you all again today. And in fact, today, I would love to know in the chat, is this your first time joining us, or were you here yesterday? Were you here on Tuesday as well? Let us know in the chat, because we love to see repeat customers, but we also love to see new faces as well. Oh, fantastic. Nizreen is here for the third day in the row. Thank you. That makes you a super fan, Nizreen, and the same for Zaki as well. Fantastic. Welcome along, everyone. So just while everybody is still getting connected, let me introduce the session today. So if you don't know, I'm Megan and I'm representing Ventani Education. We're one of the 8 partners from the Entrepreneurship4All initiative. We have partners from Belgium, Ireland, Italy, Portugal, and Greece. Today, we're going to hear from one of those partners. We are honoured to have the wonderful Pamela with us today. She's from EIT Food and she's going to be taking us through this session. But before I hand over to her, just a little thank you to everyone who's joined us already in the previous 2 days of this Finance Academy. This is actually our 5th Finance Academy, within Entrepreneurship4All. We've had lots of great topics over the past 12 months. And if you would like to go and catch up on any of those, they are on our website. You can go and catch the recordings of anything that you missed in the past. And Entrepreneurship4All is all about helping you, entrepreneurs, whether this is your first time starting a business, whether you've got 10 years of experience, wherever you are on your journey, it's about helping you upskill and become a better entrepreneur. We've got courses on our website that look at entrepreneurship, digital skills, financial literacy, sustainability, and women's entrepreneurship. So there's a little bit of something for everyone. And a tiny bit of housekeeping before we go on. I would like that you keep your microphones muted. If you would like to say something, if we come to a Q&A section, if we have the time to take messages from you, then I ask that you please use the raise hand function and we will invite you to speak. Otherwise, you have got the chat open for any comments, questions, or just to say hello. And I'm looking now at the chat and I can see lots of you are saying hello. We've got hello from Nigeria here for the first time. Fantastic. Lisa's back again. Fantastic. We've got Dennis in Romania, Nisreen in Palestine. Wonderful to see. And I'm joining from not so sunny today, Spain. So with all of that said, if you have any questions, do put them in the chat, but I will hand over to Pamela, who is here to talk all about sustainable finance. So Pamela, it's over to you.
Hi. Thank you so much, Megan. Welcome, everyone. The session is part of the Entrepreneurship4All Finance Academy. And this session is powered by EIT Food Education. We are happy to work with all of our partners on the Entrepreneurship4All project, and it's been a really great 2 years. Today, we'll explore how technology is reshaping access to sustainable finance and how the EU platform on sustainable finance SME standard can help small businesses and entrepreneurs participate. So give me a second. I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see my slide deck. Okay, can everyone see it?
Yes, we've got the editor view at the moment. Perfect. Now we see the presentation. Thanks, Pamela.
Presentation. And now that I'm in presentation, I really can't see much. So, and
don't worry. If there's any questions that come in, Pamela, I will gently interrupt you. Don't worry.
Great. And one of the first things we're going to do is have this expert, Catherine Foster, come. And I think we're waiting for her to get the link to come in, but I just want to make sure that she's here in time. I'm going to go ahead and get started.
I'm here.
Oh, great. Great. You're here. Just wanted to make sure. So by the end of this webinar, you're going to understand both the technological shifts and the policy tools, such as what I mentioned before, the SME Sustainable Finance Standard that the EU has created, that open access for funding for entrepreneurs. To start, let's look at context. For over a decade, we've talked about sustainable finance. That's finance which incorporates ESG, environmental, social, and governance factors. We went over this in our courses. If you have taken the courses on sustainable finance, or I'm sorry, sustainability in the Entrepreneurship4All courses. But we're now moving to more of a digital era of sustainable finance, where these things like blockchain, tokenization, and small contracts are creating new ways actually, to track and verify impact. We have a report by the GDFA, the 2025 report, which Megan is going to send out to everyone who joined this webinar. It was released just ahead of COP30 in Brazil, and it highlights the potential of digital finance to close the $6 trillion USD annual climate and nature finance gap by making finance more transparent and efficient. But how does this relate to entrepreneurs? So what we're going to do here is we're going to have Catherine Foster talk. Thank you, Catherine, for setting the stage about some of these insights. It's clear that technology isn't just an enabler, it's transforming how trust, transparency, and inclusion are built into finance. We're going to do sort of a interview type, and then she'll be able to answer a few questions. We'll have about 5 minutes for questions afterwards. So our topic is the future of entrepreneurship and sustainable finance. Catherine, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you. I'll introduce myself to set a bit of context. I'm so glad to be here. And I also want to say, start with the caveat that I'm sure you've covered some of this in previous sessions, but I hope to provide just a little more contextual elements to that. So I'm currently the Finance Innovation Lead at EIT Food and the Fellow at the World Economic Forum. But I began my career over 30 years ago in diplomacy, working on early sustainability and reporting frameworks, including the Global Reporting Initiative, and then moved into microfinance and later joined Climate Kick, the European Union's Climate Innovation Initiative, sister to EIT Food. From there, I worked with startups, as well as with the World Bank, the UN, on policy, reporting, and finance frameworks, and the design of impact funding mechanisms. And my work has taken me from Namibia to India, from Mexico to Malaysia, from Canada to China. And across that journey, I've been a grant giver, an investment advisor, a fundraiser for startups, NGOs, and large organizations alike. So I'm speaking from that diverse experience. And those experiences showed me how diverse sustainability really is, and how every region and entrepreneur has to define and find their own contextual avenues.
Great, thank you so much. So I'm going to start off just with question number one. I have all the guiding questions on the screen so that everyone in the webinar can follow along and remember what we already asked, because that's always one of the things when I'm in a webinar, but also to think about how you can build on questions for her after we finish this sort of interview process. So let's start with number one. What does sustainable finance mean in practice for entrepreneurs?
Oh, sustainable finance is really a spectrum, from the community loans and local grants to green bonds and blended finance facilities and even impact investment. So where you sit on that spectrum really depends on your business model, your level of development, your maturity, and also your geography, where you're actually sitting in the world. For instance, the Netherlands, we can access full EU innovation and green transition funds, while in Serbia and other EIT risk countries, such as Croatia and Romania, entrepreneurs can draw on EU pre-accession and regional programs, plus development finance from the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, the World Bank. In India, finance comes through public-private programs, social enterprise funds, green credit lines. And then, of course, we have the whole spectrum of the models, from loans to grants to investment rounds. So it depends on your business model as well.
Okay,
So
great.
I just want to say, I think sustainable finance is not only about the investor type or the funding type, but knowing your model and your values and impact, and then finding that alignment.
Okay, great. Let's move on to number two. What are investors and lenders looking for when evaluating sustainable ventures? I think this is one of the most important questions for entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. And even though, across that spectrum, they're largely all looking for very similar things, even though each funder will have a different lens and framework. So investors are looking for measurable impact, scalability, and governance. Lenders are focusing on risk management, cash flow, and compliance with ESG and other standards. Public funders and development banks are going to prioritize alignment with UN SDGs or national transition plans. Corporate partners, of course, invest where innovation helps meet their sustainability commitments. And so across all of them, the three qualities that matter the most are that clarity, the credibility, and consistency. So, our as entrepreneurs and SMEs, the business and impact story has to be coherent, data backed, and transparent.
Following up on that credibility, how can small or early stage businesses demonstrate that sustainability credibility?
It's a tough question, right? Because we think of it as this as some of us think of this as a burden. It can be extremely cumbersome to establish the frameworks and the credibility. So my recommendation is always to start small. Just start small and stay structured. Track what you can measure today. Whether it's for your own operations like energy use, sourcing, diversity, or community benefits, and build layers of evidence over time. And use the practical frameworks that align with your type of enterprise, whether it's service or product or B2B or an enabling type of model. So you have the SDGs, the ISO 26000, the B impact assessment, GRI, impact management, EU taxonomy, corporate sustainable reporting directives. There's so many frameworks out there, but these are learning tools, not necessarily checklists, right? So they help you set that compass. And to me, diversity, inclusion, who participates, who benefits, and how you govern are part of your sustainability proof, and how you present your proof of that sustainability.
That's a really interesting, holistic way of looking at sustainability. In a different way than more often not that we think about, like you said, checklists, right? But looking at this whole piece, it looks really nice. Okay, so what barriers exist to accessing sustainable finance, and how can they be overcome?
Yeah, I think again, it's so contextual, and because we have such a broad community here with us today, and all experts in their own field, the common barriers are quite real. They're limited fundraising capacity, just the operational capacity, the complexity of the frameworks, and the reporting approaches, and of course the short-term funding cycles, whether it's loans, grants, or investors. So each funding ecosystem differs. In Northern Europe, entrepreneurs can tap into, the EU innovation or green transition programs. The risk countries, the EU regional cooperation and development finance. In other parts of the world, like I said, national development banks and impact accelerators. So I think for me, it's about mapping your ecosystem, who funds what, and what frameworks they use. Choose those among those that fit your story, fit your model. So tailor your story accordingly, but don't go too broad. Once you've identified the ones that fit you, use their language, whether it's SDGs, ESGs, or social outcomes. And then collaboration helps. Join the accelerators, the clusters, or the digital platforms to share tools and networks. And then most of us have to combine different funding types: grants, loans, concessional loans, for example, private capital. So have your own sort of blended and transitional finance approach. And that helps you also layer up your data and your proof of sustainability. And the goal then is to shift from, the single projects to long-term financial partnerships.
Yeah, we talked a little this morning about the capacity issues and timing, but also bridging with that idea of credibility. How can digitalization enhance integrity and access in sustainable finance?
There's so much around digitalization, and I'm wondering here if we could just get everyone to react and tell me, are you actually working on an enterprise or an SME that actually has monitoring, reporting, and verification as your offering, or any sort of digital or technical operational or service approach. If you just give me a thumbs up and reactions, I just want to see who's here. So we have one. Any others? Okay. So it's interesting to know. Please also comment in chat and we can catch up on that. But basically, digitalization is reshaping sustainable finance on all sides. On the one hand, we have a lot of frameworks emerging and digital platforms emerging around those and offerings. But the whole point of digitalization is supposed to be about reducing transaction and reporting costs and opening doors for smaller enterprises. That's the ethos, but it can be very complex. So again, it's about starting with the right fit for you and just starting with whatever metrics you have available. Digital data platforms and AI-based analytics and platforms can help you improve your transparency, your comparability, and those platforms can also help by making impact data traceable and verifiable. So there's services out there, or you can embed those yourselves. Even simple digital tools, automated accounting, traceability apps, or cloud-based reporting can help strengthen credibility and the access to finance.
Okay, so I think you touched on this a little bit, but how can the entrepreneurs engage with the emerging data and driven models tomorrow in a practical way?
It's hard. It's again about capacity. You know, there is a lot of talk around tokenization and blockchain. I've worked deeply in those, and those are new ways of creating links to finance and impact. But those tokenized assets basically just represent either verified carbon, biodiversity, water, or SDG outcomes. So it's just about your base layer and then finding the right fit so that those can unlock either credits or different types of finance mechanisms. And it's all based around smart contracts that automate that reporting into either applications or payments once the results are verified. But we also have new mechanisms that are based on modeling to release funds even before results are verified, because that long-termism is, again, an issue. So we also have, enabled crowdfunding, connecting local ventures with global investors. Those models can also increase transparency and participation. And we have also, digital green bonds I'm working on and other types of mechanisms, but those are longer term and bigger and heftier mechanisms. So I think, to me, the opportunity lies in understanding what data you have, what tools and digital tools you are able to access, and using them to demonstrate impact to access the new or existing markets for sustainable performance. I also would say that even some of the work that's happening on the other side from the top down is proving to finance institutions and insurers that they can actually cover certain new risks or shorter term loans. So we're trying to improve from the top down as well. So that feedback loop is really essential.
Oh, thank you, Catherine. And for setting the stage with these clear insights, it really helps us understand how entrepreneurs can uh, see their context within the wider world of sustainable finance. It's clear that technology is not just an enabler, right? It's really transforming trust, credibility, transparency, and inclusion. So we have time for a few questions. I cannot see the chat. So if Megan can sort of help lead this, that would be great, with some questions from the group.
Yes, we've got one question come in here from Masum, who asks, does EIT Food provide any funding or programs for deep tech startups, particularly those based in France? Could you please share more insights about the funding opportunities or programs that EIT offers to support deep tech startups? So I don't know if either of you have a response to that, but we would love to hear.
I'll see if Pamela has a response first. My knowledge is more general.
Yes. Okay. So we have a program that covers all the different kicks. So what I work in is EIT Food, which covers anything in the agri-food industry. And we're trying to transform the food system, right, to be more sustainable. Now, altogether, the EU funds this thing called deep Tech Talent Initiative, right? And this is we working on programs. We can maybe get the link for that in the chat later.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's a way for people to train and upskill and reskill in certain areas, and some include certain ways to access funding. We also have entrepreneurship and innovation programs where we take people sort of on a pathway from new product development to mentoring to understanding how the product fits in the market and providing sometimes seed funding. Now, EIT Food, yes, we do things with innovation and deep tech, as you say, but it also has to be agri-food related because our goal is to transform the food system. So if you're interested in things like that, please connect with me on LinkedIn about some specific aspects, particularly in agri-food, and I can lead you in the correct direction. Do you have anything to add, Catherine? Do you know anything more about?
I know. I think also, yes, every one of the kicks will have sort of a digital and tech approach and different types of funding sources, and they cross from the trainings into startup as well as into collaboration spaces like our impact fund.
Yeah, great. Do we have any more questions from the group? Are we?
For now, that's all the questions we have, but please, if anyone else would like to add a question, add it into the chat, or you can use the raise hand function and we can certainly give you the mic as well. But in the absence of any questions, let's continue.
Yeah, well, I just want to thank Catherine again. I know this is a lot of information, and I'm really happy with the way she was able to contextualize her expertise in sustainable finance for what we're doing with Entrepreneurship for All. Catherine is, as she mentioned before, a WEP fellow as part of the World Economic Forum, and she's an advocate for innovation in sustainable finance. She's worked with all sorts of initiatives, including multiple UN projects that bridge technology and financial inclusion, and she has a great feed on LinkedIn. So please follow her if you're interested in sustainable finance. She's on top of it when it comes to sharing reports, information, sort of things like this about what's going on in this sustainable finance sort of milieu. And it's a great resource. So thank you again, Catherine. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. If I might say, it's been a pleasure. Choose our compass, build evidence, and connect the right ecosystems. That's where it starts.
Thank you so much. So we are going to go to right now. I think this is one of the most important things to talk about. So this is recently launched, right? This EU SME Sustainable Finance Standard. And Catherine talked a little bit about sort of picking a certain standard and really engaging with digital technology, but taking what you have as far as metrics and using those to tell your story, right? The great thing about the EU SME Sustainable Finance Standard is it kind of provides this simplified framework, right? The standard helps SMEs align with the EU taxonomy, which is the EU classification of environmentally sustainable activities, through a simple and it's voluntary framework. It makes sustainable finance accessible to everyone, proportionate and practical for small companies. It also supports the EU Green Deal and all of these sort of transition goals. And there's 3 routes to qualify: through activities, enterprises, and investments. And it's something that we truly want you to consider when you're thinking about what sort of framework to use. This is a great place to start for that. And the SME standard can help entrepreneurs, right? It offers 3 simplified routes, right? This activity-based, you can sort of look at the taxonomy-aligned actions, such as renewable energy use. Enterprise-based, holding sustainability certifications or demonstrating performance improvements. Or investment-based, financing specific green measures such as electrification or efficiency upgrades. You can use the SME Sustainability Checker to self-access and connect with lenders. And I also have a QR code here that goes straight to the EIB Green Checker. So there's all these different tools you can use, right? And it's like Catherine said, you pick the variables that you already have that you're measuring, maybe some metrics that you want to measure, right? There's always good to reflect on this. And then you can use these tools that already exist to help you organize your information. To access sustainable or digital finance, you really need to be ready, right? Preparation is the key. Entrepreneurs should, collect basic sustainability data, right? Emissions, energy use, waste metrics. You can use these digital verification tools. and you can align with frameworks. You can choose whichever framework you want. So you have a lot of flexibility with this. And as long as you communicate transparently, you show your investors your progress. They're not looking for perfection, right? No investor expects you to be perfect, but they're looking for that story of how you're progressing in this, right? And where can entrepreneurs look for funding or partnerships? This is the big question, right? There's quite a few EU level programs that allow for, sorry, EU level programs that allow for investment, like Horizon Europe, Invest EU, Life, and the European Innovation Council. Some of these are for bigger organizations, but they do work with SMEs. There's development finance. I think Catherine mentioned this briefly, the European Investment Bank and European investment funds. There's private investors, impact investors, right? Green funds, ESG focused VCs, tokenized finance platforms. But there's also smaller digital pilots like the GDFA, the BIS Innovation Hub, and the Climate Bond Initiatives. These are like testing models for small players. And this is really where you can get in if you're a small or beginning SME when you're thinking about how can I access sustainable finance. And a big tip is when you're applying, you want to emphasize both your financial performance and your impact metrics. Let's go ahead and go to our interactive moment. And this is another thing that I will need Megan to help assist me on.
Yes, of course.
Yes. So we have two questions. If you can use this QR code to access our Mentimeter, we want to help understand, one, what is your biggest barrier to accessing sustainable finance? And number two, would you consider using digital bonds or tokenized funding tools? So that kind of follows up with our question from the audience.
Fantastic. I've just shared a link in the chat, but of course you can scan the QR code if you prefer to do it on your phone. That just depends a little bit on the device you're working with today. But if you click through, you'll see the first question there. What is the biggest barrier to accessing sustainable finance? Please submit your answers.
Okay, so I'm not going to share it with you, but I'll speak through the information so that you can continue to look at it. Okay, so the largest challenge, I think, or the one that's been identified by the most learners in our webinar is really understanding where to start. And I'm not surprised about this. Sustainable finance is a complex sort of idea, and even access, even understanding it and being able to measure your own metrics in order to build credibility and then use that to apply and knowing where to apply. I mean, it's this whole length of being in the know, right? And this is one of the things where we're trying to help out with Entrepreneurship for All. And that's part of why we do these sort of finance academies, introduce you to these concepts, right? Introduce you to these sort of things and help you with the resources to find out where to go next. So I hope at the beginning, at least, the very least with this webinar, you have a little bit of an understanding of, like we said, what sustainable finance is, kind of what's going on in the big world of sustainable finance, even what corporate and industry are doing, that still trickles down to like what the independent SMEs are doing. The next sort of most important challenges that were identified were proving impact credibility and finding aligned investors. And that makes a lot of sense, right? I think one of the most difficult things is determining what metrics you're going to use and then figuring out how you're going to measure them, what tool you're going to use, and then showing that credibility through that storytelling. And as Catherine mentioned, there's digitalization tools for this now. So there's a lot of ways that these digital tools can help out with this and help you sort of down that path of proving credibility in a way that it was impossible even 5 years ago. As far as finding aligned investors, there's quite a few different, and I was talking to Catherine about this, I think it was yesterday or the day before. There's quite a few different sort of tools and websites for finding aligned investors on sustainability. And we'll send those also in the pack of information that Megan sends out after the webinar. So I think most interesting is that technical capacity was not the biggest barrier. And sometimes I think that, right? I assume that people are not going to really understand or don't have the capacity to learn how to use these new tech tools. But it seems like that's not even a challenge. And that makes me very happy to hear. So going
And
back.
yes, yesterday we had really interesting discussions about a kind of Tinder for finding investors. So I think people want to have those kind of techie ways to find people. You know, they're not scared about it anymore. They're not scared about connecting with people online and reaching out to the right people. So it kind of leads into that a little bit.
Right. So our second guest is Julie Sansui from Reclaim Finance. This is an organization that's working to redirect financial flows away from fossil fuels and toward climate solutions. So this is kind of what we're talking about with that bridging climate policy. And we'll explore how climate aligned finance can be made fair and transparent for entrepreneurs. Can everyone see my slide deck again? Presentation.
Yes, we see it well, Pamela.
Great, just making sure. You never know when you take it off and put it back on, you know? Okay, so Julie, let's get started. What does Reclaim Finance do in the world of sustainable finance?
So do you hear me well? Yes? It's okay?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So yes, Reclaim Finance is an independent NGO that works to make the financial system serve a sustainable transition. We research and expose how banks, investors, and also insurers support or block climate action, engage directly with financial actors and policymakers to push for change. And we also run public campaigns to hold institutions accountable. Maybe to give you a brief overview, despite net zero commitments today, the world's largest banks continue to finance fossil fuel expansion, including new oil, gas, and coal infrastructure. Since 2021, the 65 biggest banks in the world finance 1.6 trillion euros for fossil fuel expansion. In short, while banks publicly claim to support the climate, must continue to fund activity incompatible with the 1.5-degree pathway. And in this context, each client of financial actors should better understand the impact of their money, reclaim it, and use it as a lever to encourage a sustainable banking model.
Okay, so Reclaim Finance advocates for aligning financial flows with climate goals, right? That's the metrics they use, the climate goal connection. How can small and growing businesses play a role in that transition, even when they're not these large institutional investors?
People often think money is neutral, but behind every euro, there is choice with real effect, earning income from polluting or green projects, saving to support companies that protect the planet or those that harm it. Money always has social and environmental impacts that we can choose to see or ignore. And the Carbon Bankroll report published by the US NGOs shows the hidden climate impact of how companies manage their cash. It analyzes the greenhouse gases caused by the cash management of big companies. This report demonstrates that if we include this financial carbon footprint in company climate reports, total emission would be much higher. For example, for Amazon, this footprint is already more than 10% of its reported emission. For services company, the difference is even bigger. In 2021, Netflix financial footprint was 10 times higher than the emission from all of its streaming, so it is very consequent. And Google's was almost 40 times higher than its direct emission between 2016 and 2020. impact-driven companies like yours, for example, are often more aware of the effects of their financial choices, but it is also true that they are often dependent on the service provided by financial actors. Nevertheless, they represent the very future of business, and that's why you can also play a role in this transition without making financial choices that will put your business at risk.
That's really interesting, thinking about how you can choose, and then knowing what they're doing at a higher institutional level helps you make better choices. So many entrepreneurs see sustainable finance as complex or out of reach. We've been talking about this today. What practical steps can they take to align their financial planning with sustainability goals from the start?
There is the ex-CEO of Unilever, Paul Polman, that said something very interesting, I think. On this point, he said that if you would not hire PR agencies that promote tobacco, for example, why support a bank whose investment pushes toward a climate disaster? And he said, why indirectly finance a fossil fuel industry that would make it impossible for you to meet your own climate commitments? I think the very first step we can take is to ask ourselves, what are my commitments and what commitments do I expect from my partners, whether it is my electricity provider or the firm I work with or my bank. And I think the second step is to reach the right information. And it is a very crucial point because financial actors are often excellent communicators. No matter which bank you use, I bet you've already seen communication or advertising about your bank climate or social commitments. So in this context, it can be very difficult to form an opinion about each bank's actual climate performance. So NGO provide many resources with sourced, verifiable, and comparable data that makes this possible. Today, the topic of fossil fuel expansion, for example, is the most documented and the one with the strongest consensus. Based on finding from the IPCC or the International Energy Agency. There is NGO as Reclaim Finance that give such information, but also BankTrack, Make My Money Better campaign in UK or Urgewald. And I think also the third and final step is to choose your mode of action. There is different mode of action for a business that wants to act on this subject. He can first choose financial actors with the best practices. For that, he can check, for example, what Reclaim Finance furnished in terms of trackers to check its banks or insurers' commitments on coal, oil, and gas. But he can also make other things. The second mode of action can be to raise its voice, use regular dialogues with the financial partners you work with to engage them on this issue, or leverage network you are part of to speak with a unified voice. And finally, you can also act on your own finance first. Check your life insurance, the commitments of your bank for your personal savings. Each of these actions are really effective, and it is important to choose the ones that correspond best to your business and to yourself.
Yeah, I really like that, your focus on reflecting on your own choice and your agency and making those choices based on your values, and how Reclaim Finance can actually make it a little bit easier for you to make these choices when you're kind of inundated with, I'm not going to say greenwashing, but we all know it exists. especially in financial institutions, and that Reclaim Finance kind of provides this platform for helping us make informed decisions and when we make those choices that align with our values, right? So from your perspective, what are the most promising trends or innovations in sustainable finance that entrepreneurs should be aware of? For example, green bonds, ESG-linked loans, or even new policy tools.
I'm not an expert on green bonds, but based on recent studies, it seems that while there is a premium for green bonds issued by large, reputable companies, there is evidence that green bonds may not reduce so much borrowing cost for smaller and riskier issuers. In some cases, the cost is the same or even higher than that of conventional bonds. So I don't know if there is a miracle product here. But what I can say concerns more the investment options offered by financial actors. Greenwashing is very common, whether among money market funds label or in the marketing of certain term deposits. European labels are diverse, and apart from the Belgian Towards Sustainability label and also the French label ISR, most major European labels today do not exclude funds from companies that invest in new fossil fuel projects. So business that wants to place their cash have to be aware about that. And as for term deposits, they often rely on misleading communication because it is almost impossible today to channel a client deposit to a specific loan. So therefore, it is much more relevant to select financial partners based on their overall policy rather than a specific product that happen to market.
Yeah. I'm going to go a little off these questions because I think we can start going a different way. So, we'll send you different questions also in the packet, Megan. I'll update everything. But I think more interesting would be that thinking about access to capital and how that remains a major barrier for sustainable startups. What can founders or SMEs do to make their businesses more attractive to sustainability-focused investors or lenders?
I don't know exactly what they can do because I'm not a specialist on this subject, but what I can say is that we need responsible companies, right? And the point here is not to say that businesses like yours cannot work with traditional financial actors, take the money where it is, but put your own whenever possible to support a fairer financial system. Many alternative models exist. Banks that are changing the game, like La Nef, for example, in France, or Solaris Bank, citizen-led initiatives such as Terre de Liens, which allow individuals to invest collectively in land and lease it low cost to farmers committed to agroecology, for example. Other citizen collectives that pool their resources together to invest in meaningful projects, and also crowdfunding platforms. Participating in the transformation of the financial system is really essential to support a sustainable economic model that funds solutions where they exist, like the ones you can offer.
Yeah. So Reclaim Finance, and this is just the last question, they emphasize accountability and transparency. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs about measuring and communicating their impact to potential investors?
Really, like I said before, we are not an expert on reaching capital for a small and medium company. Our expertise is more on sustainable finance and the accountability of financial actors. So I don't know if I am the right person to talk about it.
Okay. In this context, I mean, I think we've all talked about, or you talked a lot about, it is possible to reconcile, right, the environmental impact with the partnerships that you choose to have, right? like that's still your choice, and that you can do this in a certain systematic way, and that there are organizations and resources out there to help you make these sort of choices. Is there anything else that you would like to say in final closing before we move on?
No, thank you very much for this invitation, and I hope it will give food to companies that want to think better their financial services and choose where they want to put their cash. That's it.
Well, that's exactly what we were thinking about too, right? So thank you so much, Julie. We really appreciate you being here. I have a QR code to link you directly to Reclaim Finance. Please explore their website. They have quite a few resources and reports when you think about climate policy and sustainable finance. A lot of it is higher level, but like I said, with everything, it's so important to know what's going on when you're in the sustainable finance world at this higher level, because it does trickle down to you, whether or not it's metrics that are used, the policies that are enacted, how the major industry players is going to affect entrepreneurs and small and medium enterprises at every step of the way. So thank you again, Julie, for being with us, and we really, really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
So we are almost finished. We went through our questions. We've got some final takeaways, right? The future of finance is digital, transparent, and inclusive. This is what we're seeing right now within financial sustainability and sustainable finance in general. There are ways to use the tech movement and the digitalization movement to build out your sustainable finance sort of strategy from the beginning all the way to choosing metrics, to actually measuring, and to telling that story so that you have credibility and investors can look at you through the lens of trust. Entrepreneurs must prepare with credible data and clear sustainability goals, right? And it doesn't matter, you don't have to hit every single box, right? Look at what you've already got. Maybe reflect and make a few tangential or ancillary goals that are actually achievable, and start measuring those and tell that story of your progress. That's what investors want to hear. They want to hear your progress, how you've really looked and reflected on what sustainability means for your business and how your plan going forward. And it's really important when you don't know where to start. Take a look at something like this new standard from the EU. It really allows you to like frame your thinking and think about things in a different way. We all have a decision fatigue, especially small business owners and entrepreneurs. You're at capacity when it comes to really thinking about new things and injecting new ideas or concepts into your business. But there are models that are there to help you and frameworks that are accessible that are trying to make it easier for you. And the EU really wants to do that. That's the goal of ISMEA. That's the goal of Entrepreneurship for All. We're trying to help entrepreneurs at every stage access the sort of tools and information that they need to really scale up and step up their business. And these enablers that we sort of want you to access, reach out to us. If you need more information, we are more than happy to help. And before we close, right on time, actually, can you use this QR code to look at this word cloud? We want to know the one word you associate with sustainable digital finance. I have a feeling I know there's going to be a lot of words, a lot of the same words when it comes to thinking about our webinar, but we're really curious on what you're going to say.
Pamela, at the moment, through the QR code, we've got the first question that you presented, the what's your biggest barrier? So you just need to click through on your Menti presentation over to the wildcard question so that we have the access.
There we go. Are you on it?
Let's see. For me, it hasn't updated, but let me just check. I'll go through the link.
I should have embedded it in the presentation.
Let me just see. No, I still see the question, not the word cloud.
Okay, let's do it a different way. Can
Don't worry.
everyone?
I think we can put the answers in the chat. That
That's what I was
will
going to say.
work for us.
Let's just put it in the chat. I'd love to see
Exactly.
some words that people, for me, when I think about sustainable finance, a lot of times it's complexity, right? Is one of the things that I think people are overwhelmed by where to start.
So I've just copied the question there into the chat for you so that you can see it before you respond. Okay, so please feel free to add your response.
Yeah, or just your thoughts. Digital finance. I like that. Everything is digitized now, right? You're not going to get around it. But the good thing is like these digital tech tools, the digitalization of finance is making its way to sustainable finance, and it's going to help us. Oh, Megan, I like this greenwashing. Oh, we have to be careful. I'm so glad there's organizations like Reclaim Finance, and they're not the only one. They're just the ones that agreed to come talk to us today, and I'm so grateful for them. But they're not the only one, but they provide resources for us to that we can trust and we can understand and sort of make decisions that are based beyond greenwashing. A better future for a better mindset. At EIT Food, we're really interested in regenerative processes. This thought that everything we do is making the world a better place, right? Well, we're interested in food and agriculture. It goes down to leadership. It goes down to business. It's the way that we look at the world. So I'm happy to hear that. And forecasting, so important. And that goes along with the digitalization too, but forecasting, foresight, any sort of horizon scanning, thinking about the future. This is really important when we start talking about climate goals in the world that we want to live in and the world that we're going to have businesses in the future, right? And sustainable development goals. Thank you, Kaylin. Welcome. I think that this was a big part of the online courses. So if you didn't get a chance to take any of the courses, there's still time. The Entrepreneurship4All courses, you can still enroll in them and take them. And the sustainability track has courses that talk specifically about the sustainable development goals if you want more information on that. And also the UN has courses on their website. So I think that we are coming to the end. We're right on time. Megan, did you want to talk a little bit about Entrepreneurship4All or?
Yes. Thank you, Pamela. We are perfectly on time. That's great. So thank you, Pamela. Thank you, Catherine. And thank you, Julie, for joining us today and sharing so much valuable information with us. I will take the last few minutes just to update everyone on what's coming up in Entrepreneurship4All. So firstly, as Pamela said, our courses are online. They are totally free. They are really accessible. You can go in, you can take just one course here, one course there. You can progress through the levels if you want to. You can also pick and choose a little bit. So maybe you're really interested in women's entrepreneurship. Go and take the women's entrepreneurship courses in level 1, level 2, and level 3, or try, if you are just starting out, go and take level 1, and if you're a bit more experienced, go and take level 3. But I really recommend that everyone take a look at Learning Pathway 4, which is called I Want to Reflect and Grow. This is a really interesting pathway. It's a little bit different from the first 3 pathways, which are skills focused. It's really about looking at your journey, looking at where you are now, where you hope to be, maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10 years, thinking about how can you progress on your journey. And this is something that's accessible to you no matter what level you're at right now. So I really recommend going and taking a look at that. You can complete your reflective journal, which is a really interesting activity to do, and actually something that I know Pamela really supports because you presented the Wellbeing Academy all about reflection and looking back at what you're doing. So I highly recommend that. And then I also encourage you to take a look at our events. There's lots coming up. We still have our final event taking place in Brussels. So if you are in Brussels or near to Brussels and you're able to join us, we would love to see you there. We're also hoping to plan an online version of our final event because I know that so many of our wonderful learners, community members are not able to travel to Brussels. So we hope to invite you to that very soon. But with that said, we will close for the day. And oh, of course, the LinkedIn group too. Please come and join the LinkedIn group if you haven't already. It's an open space for sharing. So we really encourage you to post in there. I know that lots of you have got fantastic resources, projects, other courses, events. please come and share it with everyone. We're over 800 members now, and we'd be very happy to have you there. So with that said, thank you everyone for joining us today. We hope to see you in another Entrepreneurship for All event very soon, but we wish you a good afternoon. Goodbye, everyone.